Welcome to another episode of the Cheerful Soundman podcast. It's a weekly show for event professionals to hear from other event professionals on the challenges and lessons of producing stellar events with a smile. I'm Eric, the owner of Bunt Backline, an event production company right here in Gainesville, Florida. Today we're talking to Jason Decter from Titusville, Florida, I believe, currently. And he is, you'll hear his storied resume, but we met recently over the purchase of our L Acoustics PA that's on the way. And he's got a long resume. We've known each other through some mutual friends. We'll get into that in a minute. I wanted to have him on just to hear a little bit. We've had a lot of kind of local production folks, and we wanted to hear a little bit more about the national level, the touring level, and I got some questions for him on that front. But before we dive in, make sure you follow the show on Instagram at The Cheerful Soundman. That's The Cheerful Soundman. And let's dive in. Well, hey, Jason. How's it going, Jason?
Hey, Eric. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Jason Decter. I mix audio for different artists that tour around the globe. I'm a music mixer, if you will, preferably at front of house, only because the other end of the snake I find too much to deal with. Out there at the island, nobody really bugs me too much, so I kind of went the path of least resistance.
Can you give us who's kind of some of your most recent employers, if you will? Who have you been mixing recently?
I have a couple credits. For the last 10 years, I've done Blink 182. I started doing them right after Dave Ratt gave me the gig when he went to the Chili Peppers, I believe in 2010, I want to say. Before that, I did Weezer. Before that, I did Panic at the Disco, Plain White Tees, Avril Lavigne. God, there's more. I'd have to look at the paper, but it all starts with a band called Yellow Card from Jacksonville, Florida. Back in 2003, they were pretty much my first artist payroll.
Wow,
Not working
Ocean
for a
Avenue
production
action.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, not too far
Nice.
from
I think
Gainesville, right?
a band I was in back in the day. Yeah, so a band I was in when I lived in St. Augustine for several years. We think we played a show with them at University of North Florida, but it was even before 2003. It was earlier than that, and I think they were just starting to get a little bit of traction, and it was kind of cool to like
Right.
a couple years later, we heard their stuff on the radio. It's like, oh, cool, we know those guys.
Yeah, you're like, how did
Yeah.
you guys get signed to Capitol Records?
Oh, it's not like that. No. So, even further back than that, like, how did you get into audio and mixing in the first place? Like, what got you started in
Yeah,
this business?
I graduated high school down in Florida here, down West Palm Beach in '91. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad was a urologist, called him the pee-pee doctor. My mom was a nurse. They wanted me to go into the medical field. Didn't really want to do that. I loved guitar. I loved playing in a band. I wanted to be in a band. I was convinced that that was the way. So my uncle offered me a job for the summer. They put in a kitchen at the bar they had. So I was bar backing. I was cooking pizza and chicken wings, and then I would, help the bands on the weekends. So he went to Key West, Florida one
Mm.
weekend and left me with a little 16-channel Yamaha mixer with like 3 bands of EQ, a gain knob, and 1 fader. 2 aux sends, those are the monitors. But let me tell you, for the first year, the bands hated me because I made squeaks like you've never heard before, feedback every night. But finally, I got it because I knew not to turn the knob that way because I knew that was bad. I didn't know why at that point it was bad. I just knew don't turn it there because it's going to be problems. So I kind of worked my little workflow like that up until the end of that summer. It got me by. I kind of liked it. I still wanted to play guitar, but I knew I was getting closer to playing guitar by like hanging around the stage, if you will. After that, I started working for a regional company called National Audio, and they're right out of Syracuse, New York. That's where I met my first like major league engineer. His name is Greg Best. He mixes The Offspring now. He used to mix a bunch of other bands, but he's kind of like the first guy that I knew that I watched that would go out and like mix shows. He used to do like Limp Bizkit and stuff back in the day. Really smart guy, really into, kind of army tanks and all kinds of crazy stuff. Our used to have like the biggest ham radio satellite dish in the northern hemisphere on their property. The government came and checked them
Oh,
out.
wow.
They used to bounce signals out. He would sit out there and smoke doobies and bounce signals off the moon and talk to like people in Russia. Cool cat, cool cat. But did that and ended up. I was
That's
like, I
basically
gotta do
audio
something.
engineering.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. He's like, I gotta do something. So I moved to Vegas and I got a job, which was then Electrotech ProMix. And then it turned into PRG, of course, bought that place. And that was back, I want to say, in 1999, early 2000s. Then I started working at the Hard Rock at the Old Joint. And then VDOS came out, L Acoustics, and I got a sniff of some VDOS. And I was like, oh, because the company that I worked for was one of the biggest VDOS companies. So my job was to QC speakers. I would bring the boxes up and put them through their pace with audio precision, and either they pass or fail. And that was my gig. Met like Robert Scoville, again, honing my craft and cutting my teeth. Again, I didn't know who these people were. Robert Scoville was some dude I saw like in the warehouse, like going like this. I didn't know like what it was all about still. And then fast forward, and now I'm like on panels with him and Dave Ratt and stuff. So it's pretty cool to see the evolution of what goes on in audio.
Yeah. So with touring, so how did you? I'm curious how you landed that first tour. Like, what was the transition from? So you obviously you moved from knob twister at the bar to shop guy.
So the first
how did
tour,
you pick up that first gig?
The first gig, just being on tour with L Acoustics, and or mixing, because that came later. I was touring before I was mixing. So I got my break to tour to get on the road. Yeah, a system tech. Yep. So I was working because my wife's Canadian, so we were up in Canada and played a company which is now folded into Metalworks. It used to be called Band World, and they were one of the first companies that had like it was like Solotech, them, maybe one other company that had VDOS at the time, and they had a cross rental from audio analysts out of Colorado, Styx, REO Speedwagon, and John Waite. So me and another dude from the company got sent out from the Canada to come over to the state. I was American, so it was no big deal for me. But when you're Canadian, they're like, "Oh, we're going to America to go on tour. Hope we can get into the country." I'm like, "Well, yeah, me too, I guess, because I'll have to do a lot of work if you don't." So yeah, that's 2002. Hanging Speakers, dude, is my first time, and then right after that, I was looking for something to do. And my first like front of house teching job, like kind of touring thing that I really didn't have anything to build, but I met a lot of people and got hired from Yellow Card from it. My first artist, my next stepping stone was the Warp Tour, actually, in 2002.
Okay, yeah, so that puts you on with a lot of those artists.
That's how and the next year, the year after, and that was Industrial Sound and Touring Technology, which folded into Rat. And Greg Dean and Greg Dowdy own those companies. And Greg Dean is out. He production manages Green Day now.
Okay. So then you started with Yellow Card, and then you basically kind of picked up better and better tours, so to speak, at that point, or
One thing that
were they like career moves, or was it more like, oh, this tour's ending and I'm sitting around, so I'm going to take a call from these guys?
At first it was like that. At first it was like that. Ocean Avenue was just coming out, so that was like a record cycle. So it went for almost a year. Mm-hmm. But then when they were off the road, I was like, oh gosh, what's next? So, I do remember back then kind of spinning my wheels a little bit, looking and kind of stressing out where I was going to get the next gig because I had my taste of it and I didn't want it to go away. I was like, this is great. Oh my gosh, I get paid to do this. This is cool. So right after that, like 2004 Story of the Year, the band Story of the Year, I got on with them. And that was my first like huge blown arena stadium tour because at that point we were the opening act for Linkin Park. So it was us, POD, Hoobastank, and Linkin Park. So I would mix right after Brad Divins and, right before Brad Divins and Chad Olick and Brendan Brown. So I would just go out there and like everybody else would be partying and stuff. And I would go stand behind all the engineers and like peer over their shoulder and, kind of like see what EQ was in the kick drum and see what EQ was in the vocals. I would straight up steal it. I wasn't even ashamed. I was like, dang, my snare drum.
It's borrowing. It's borrowing. It's not stealing. It's
borrowing. And the funny thing is, like, these people are still around. So, like, I see them on the road, and I'm like, dude, I straight up stole your channel strip, man. Like, right here, I saw you do everything.
Yeah, there's still, everything. Every source is different, but it's.
Yeah, like I've kind of always said to other people that are younger engineers, watch, learn, take what you want and leave what you don't. You don't have to do everything they do, but when something like piques your interest, watch it.
Well, that's why we even have a couple of local engineers that I like. Like we have one guy he tours with Hot Water Music and some other guys around here, and he like I just love his drum tones. So every time I'll hire him to come mix for our company for a festival or whatever, and I'll just be watching the drums every time I walk by. I'm like taking notes and little pictures and stuff. Like, what is he doing with that gate? Something that sounds different than my rig, So yeah, I definitely get that. Geeking out and trying to copy that, What's something that when you were starting out, you kind of wish you knew, or something that came back to bite you, or that you just like maybe would have shaved a few years off of your journey, if you will?
Probably the relinquishing of the power to go from analog to digital. Because I actually have lost a couple gigs because I was like, I'm bringing my XL4. They're like, you can't do it on a profile. I'm like, I don't want to do it on a profile, but I will, I guess. Next. So, my stubbornness, I guess, in this business might be, but my stubbornness just is because I believe it's the what sounds the best for that client, right?
That's what I was going to ask. Was that more of a musical choice than I can't imagine. You don't seem to me like the type of guy who's like, I refuse to learn the new thing. It sounds like more of I don't think the new thing's as good as the old.
Right. That's exactly my mindset, because my first really spiel into the digital realm was on that Linkin Park tour. And we had a Shoko Prism rig, like just these big freaking huge walls of sound. And we had the Shoko Prism desk. So it was, even though it's an analog desk with a digital control surface, it's still a digital desk. The surface is digital. So the only thing the guy says to me is like, remember to hit select before you start working on something. Because if it's not what you think it is, things are going to change for the worse pretty quick. And I definitely caught myself working on the kick drum when I thought it was a vocal. I guess not being so stubborn about like that would have eased a couple pains for me. And I think, it took me a couple years to not really to learn. Well, I mean, I guess in a way it is learning gain structure, but I just wanted to always kind of be louder than everybody else. So like by the time I got to my vocal, sometimes I couldn't even put it anywhere because like I'm pretty much in the red all the way across the desk. So and a lot of that comes from the pressure of me like mixing behind these big guys in this arena, and I've never done it. So my initial thing was like, I need to be loud to come out of the gate big. And then I'm like, wow, the only thing that did was make the kick drum really loud and the guitars really loud. I can't hear my vocal at all. This sucks. So I think, in hindsight, when I used to stare over everybody's shoulder, the gains were already done. I was just looking at the EQs. I should have came back when they were doing the gains
Mm.
too. Then I would have been like, it doesn't need to go into the yellow every time. I'm good here.
Kind of in this vein, my follow-up question to that is usually, what is the biggest event fail that you've experienced? And then, if, what have you learned from that? But
Um,
what's kind of the biggest
I,
like
I started
catastrophe
out
that you've been
shitty.
involved in?
You know why I'm not the monitor guy?
Please tell
I
us.
knew I didn't want to do monitors, and this is back with the Band World company back in Canada when I went out on sticks with. So you know the Air Canada Center where they play hockey. Um,
Hmm.
I took a gig as the monitor tech, and it was for like a Chinese ballet or Chinese something. I was really, I was in over my head. There was 22 mixes on deck. I had no monitor tech. I didn't know how to, I didn't know how to take your stage hands and make them work for you. I just saw these dudes like looking at me, and I'm like, why aren't they helping me? Little did I know you're supposed to direct them, and they will help you. Like, so these are all learning steps. Well, to fast forward the story is we held the doors to the ACC for 2 hours because of me. The client didn't pay the bill for the monitor section because of me. I was lucky to even go out on sticks with that company after that little catastrophe. And on the other side of that, I worked with this guy from up there that was the front of house engineer that just sat out there after he built his Soundcraft in his one rack and just sat there with his feet up and just watched me just flail all day long. See, didn't even come help me. See, now that's kind of, yeah, that's
That's
kind of set
messed
the
up,
whole
man.
tone for my career. If I see somebody flailing, yeah, if I see somebody flailing in the water, I immediately, just from knowing how it feels getting burned, just automatically go there and help them put out the fire.
Yeah, man, you've got to. Like that's because I've had that a lot in owning a small company. Like you'll get someone who's like, "Oh, I've seen this guy work. He knows what he's doing," and then they'll get on the hot seat and have six guys in a band yelling at them. And you're like, "Okay, I can. My front of house mix is fine. I'm gonna run up there and help him get this sorted for a minute." And I cannot
Yeah,
imagine just putting my
yeah.
feet up
See,
and being like, He'll figure it out. It'll be fine." There you go. I like it. So yeah, so you had a total shit show of a of a monitor gig.
I wasn't even a mixer then, for the front of house. Like that was still before I did anything. So, but I did know I don't want to do monitors after that because nobody helps you.
Fair enough.
You live and you
Fair
learn.
enough. And that was probably pre. I mean, not probably. That's definitely pre IEM world. So now you're talking about everybody's got their own headphone mix, and then not only that, you're like
22
coordinating RF
EV,
and
yeah, EVX wedges.
no feedback problems whatsoever. I'm sure. I'm positive. They held the door two
Yeah,
hours. That's insane.
and
That is insane.
the other thing is I have to interact with the actual engineer that speaks no English at all.
Just getting madder and madder at you. Like, come on, guy. Is this how all Canadians are? What's wrong
He
with
was
you?
he was pissed. He was
I'm sure he
pissed.
was.
They were all they were all pissed, and I'm standing there with a bunch of cables, like,
Oh, that's amazing. Oh man. So fast forward, then you toured with Blink 182 and did some of that level of stuff. But we'll come back into some of that in a minute. But I'm curious. A lot of our theme lately has been, this bizarre last year and a half or so with the pandemic, and just kind of wondering how things have been for you throughout that, and like how you've transitioned or pivoted or whatever. What's kind of different? What's the same?
yeah, a lot of things are different, more than they are the same. I would like to say. Um, I kind of got lucky last year. A lot of my friends didn't get lucky like I did because once COVID happened, everything was off for the entertainment. We had our last show in 20 and February 19th at the iHeartRadio out, and so I was already in Vegas, or sorry, in LA. And then I got commissioned to do a scoring of a movie, of a horror film, and got locked into to a studio with the producer of the movie for the COVID period. So I was making a little bit of money. It wasn't like you're used to touring, but it was something new, something different. Opened up a couple different avenues. I definitely like it. I would do it again. Definitely a unique art. Did some Foley recording, and I've always done studio and broadcast, so it's kind of just natural to me to jump over. It was more of keeping track of the session at that point for me, because there's 390 something tracks going on at once, and when you go searching for something, it's a little bit difficult to find. So your workflow game really needs to be on point. As the guy sits over your shoulder going, this sound that goes, where's that? Right here. I would do like a cleanup, a good hour of cleanups after everybody left the room, just like, because I would leave myself mental notes in the note box, and I would go back and relabel and rework it, recolor. Like if I was like, oh, this needs to be in the purple like percussion section, I would just note it. I wouldn't do it then and make them wait. I would come back and do it after. Of course, I wouldn't charge the client for that, but it's a good way for me to come out looking good. So I definitely put in a lot of time on it. It's not even out yet. It comes out this year. So I hope it makes
Is it
some
like
kind of
a
dent.
feature film?
I'm not really into horror movies. Yeah, hour and 30. Yeah, it's like guy can franchise it or whatever. It's called Hellbilly Hollow. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool, man. So making the transition to some studio work, and then you're going to be doing some work with us with the L Acoustics PA, doing some system tech and engineering for us.
Yeah,
And
and I
then
do a lot of stuff around here locally. Yeah. Orlando. I help a lot of the churches around here too.
right on.
I don't know. It's fun to teach the guys that. Yeah, it's more like I don't make money at it, but it's fun to do.
Yeah. Well, churches they tend to have they've got a lot of PAs between them. So every church has a PA. So whether they're not
They
all
got a lot of
necessarily
money
great,
too.
but
I should start charging them.
you should. I think your resume dictates that you should be able to charge at least a little bit of something for some expertise. But I'm glad you're out there helping folks in your community.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
Blink 182 getting back out on tour anytime soon? Or you got any plans to hit the road soon, or is that all kind of up in the air at this point?
There's some dates on the books now, but I really don't really see them happening or coming to fruition anytime soon. There was some talk about it, but our drummer is dating that Kardashian girl, so he's all in love. So I don't think anybody's going anywhere till
Gotcha. So he's not coming out of the house for a while, is what you're saying.
our drum tech says no bueno. I'm off the road, yeah, until I mean I don't even know if they'll go out this year again. It's probably gonna be like a next year kind of thing.
So touring with Blink
Yeah.
182. Yeah. So give me your best your go-to.
Um,
If we were actually having a beer together right now, what's your go-to touring with Blink 182 story?
um, with Blink 182, we went to the drum tech I told you about. As I said, no bueno for Travis. We went to Mark Hoppus's farm when he lived in London, England. Out there, everybody got totally annihilated. Like, just the security guy was like, "All right, you guys need to leave." So we're like, okay. So we went. They drove us in their tour buses there and everything. Beat the street double decker buses. We're like, how you trip each other, like going down the just walk.
Yeah.
You're all
Just
drunk. You like try to trip each other when
yeah,
you're a
messing with
kid,
your
like in
buddies. Yeah.
school or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going, and I have a thing with front of house techs, dude. Like I have the worst luck ever. So this story right here is going to lead into my other front of house tech story that's not so bubbly and nice. This one was an accident. The other one wasn't. So Justin decides to trip Travis's drum tech, Daniel, which is like my best friend, and he falls on the cobblestone road and peels his forehead back.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
has to go to the plastic, and we have a show the next day, and has to go to the plastic surgeon. Like it's like gnarly. Travis was like, I don't even know if I can play if Daniel's not there. You know, we're like, what are you talking about? You play all the time when nobody's around. So, in Mark Hoppus's driveway, just blood, everything, and Hoppus is just looking at us. He's like, "What the heck is going on here, man? Like, this is crazy." So they usher him out. Of course, the next year when we get ready to go back on the road again, I'm like, "Justin's gonna come with us, right?" We're like, "No, we can't have him back out here. No way, no way." I'm like, "All right." So I had to call Justin and be like, "Sorry, dude, you can't come back on the road with us." I get another tech for the next year. And both these dudes that I'm talking about right now live in Florida. It's crazy. It must be something about Florida people. Dude, my other buddy, Ben, like, I don't know, maybe has anger issues. So the next day I replace the tech. I'm like, who's going to come out with me? I call Dave Ratt. We talk about it. We're like, this guy's good. And I'm like, all right. Guy comes out. We come out of the I don't know if it's the Coral Sky Amphitheater anymore, but whatever the West Palm Beach Amphitheater is, we're going to the Ask Gary Amphitheater by Tampa by the Hard Rock there. I'm halfway there. I get a call from Sully, our tour manager. He's like, where are you? I'm like, I don't know, like an hour and a half away. And this is like 9 a.m. He's like, well, your front of house tech just jumped over the amp rack and kneed our LD in the face and knocked him out. And I'm like,
man.
Why? He's like, well, we don't know. It just happened, but I want to fire him and you're not here. And I'm like, well, fire him. I don't need to be there for you to fire him. He's like, well, who's going to do everything? I was like, me when I get there in an hour and a half. So he didn't get fired. He was allowed to do the rest of the tour with us.
So why did he jump over the desk?
My Rolodex is running out of, because the guy looked at him and said something stupid and he was kidding, and dude was probably hungover and had a bad day and jumped over the LA 8 racks and kneed him in the face. And when I got there and looked at the dude's face, I mean, he was gashed open. And he was the actual LD. He was the lighting day. It's like somebody jumping over and kneeing me in the face. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Wow. I'm amazed he didn't get fired.
Those stories have nothing to do with me, but we're lucky he didn't get arrested. But I mean, in Florida, do you really get arrested for kneeing somebody in the face? I don't even know anymore.
I don't think you get arrested for much here, from my experience. But
yeah, I'm not a big I kind of keep to myself.
So Jason, I have one that came to mind, and this was I was actually just driving in the car thinking about this. I was like, coming up with some questions or stuff I wanted to chat with you about. And it dawned on me that you guys were supposed to be the headliner for the ultimate production fail of the Firefest. The Bahamas thing.
Yes.
So did you actually get out there, or did it?
Our scene container. No, we got called the day before, and our production manager said, "Don't get on the plane." It's like it's no good. Don't get on the plane. We had got the deposit money, and we told them that we knew something was up, but we really didn't know it was up, because they go, oh my God, we're going to this resort, we're going to do this show. And like our production assistant came in and she's showing us like all these villas and these banging rooms. And we're all high fiving. We're like, yeah, dude, this is going to be gnarly. This is going to be epic. Awesome. We're hyped, dude. I got my suntan lotion packed. I got my headphones. Like, I got everything laid out in my bed. All of a sudden, like 12 hours before a ring, we're not going. Don't get on the plane. I'm like, what the heck? They're like, dude, we'll tell you later. I'm like, okay. But they said the only reason we didn't ask questions, they said, your guys are getting paid. We're like, okay. So I can sit home and get paid? They're like, yep. I was like, yeah, but I really wanted to go to that banging suite. Like, that place looked pretty cool. So we didn't think anything else above it, and then the next, like, we had some shows rescheduled, and we heard like the week after, like they had our C container because we sent the B rig over, because the A rig, we have a ABC rig, which is like all the backline drum sets, guitars, so everything's the same, just can travel to different locations. We sent the B rig down there, and they kept the shipping container for 2 months.
Oh, the Bahamas Customs.
Finally got it back. The management, yeah, management had to fight and pay, probably some money and get it back, and a lot of insurance was involved. But yeah, it was a thing in our camp for sure.
Wow.
Check this out. How you knew it was weird? How you knew it was weird from a production standpoint of view? Check this out. I'm looking at this spec when they sent me the specs, and it's like a CL5, like some boxes I've never heard of. And I'm just like, this is not, can't they get L acoustics somewhere? Like, what the hell is this? All of a sudden, like a week later, they send oh, no, we got this. This is what's coming up. Profile. And I was like, I want an SSL, but a profile work. K2 rig, SB28s. I was like, all right, now we're talking. There we go. All right, that's good. So I okayed it. No, all smoke and mirrors.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know some guys. There's, I think, Zenith over in Orlando, if you know those guys at all. That's a lighting company. CPR, which we work with a ton, cross rental stuff. So those are Orlando companies.
I know CPR.
Yeah. So
Tim Brown.
Yeah, Tim Brown's not with them anymore. Tim Burkebile is, but anyway, they're a great company. We work with them on a lot of stuff. But I think they had some cross rental gear that went with one of the other vendors.
Yeah.
So there was like, I didn't get all the details from them, but there was definitely a lot of gear because it all came from Florida. So just a lot of people in our network even that were like waiting and hoping and
Yeah.
praying their gear actually came back. Because then it wasn't even about, like, it's not like if it were in the US, you'd just go get your gear. You just send trucks and dudes and go get your gear. But this is in the Bahamas, and not
Yeah.
only, I mean, even if you could send a boat, because it's not that far, it's like 70 or 80 miles or whatever, they're not going to let you take it. So because the customs was trying to get all the Bahamians paid and all this stuff paid, it was a big old mess. Oh man,
Yes.
Firefest, that's great, dude. I was so
Yes.
glad. I was also like, man, I hope they don't have some like BS NDA or something, like not allowed to talk about Firefest. Very cool, man. Well, thanks a lot. I'm sure, I think we'll probably end up doing this again in person at some point. And yeah, really appreciate you being on. Appreciate you sharing some stuff with us. And yeah, I'm excited. We've got a couple shows coming together with the new K2 for Bunt Backline and Vivid Sky. And man, it's going to be fun. Rock and roll. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cheerful Soundman podcast. If you like the show, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and leave a review on Apple or Spotify podcast. And follow us on Instagram at The Cheerful Soundman. That would make our day. Either way, thank you for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you got a little something out of it too. Can't wait until we get to share the next episode, which will drop next Tuesday. So stay tuned, and until then, don't suck and don't be a jerk.